for mineralism.
You want to speak? Here you go.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had to interrupt you to fix the adjustment of the light on the camera, so you can finish your thought.
I've already finished.
Okay, I would like to count.
For us so we can have a record of what you consider.
Okay. I would like to counter what Kaden said because it takes a rare occurrence of things to happen, like mineralization and stuff inside the bones. You want to talk again? Okay.
I would also like to counter what Kaden said because speaking of jellyfish, which don't have any bones, so they would not fossilize, so there would be no record, and if the jellyfish species dies off, there will be no record of them ever lived except in photography or journalization.
I'd like to counter what Steven said because there's different types of fossils. There can be an imprint, a body, or cast. So they could become a fossil, but the body could not be there. So
I would like to counter what John said is
oh my gosh.
what jellyfish would decompose faster than if they could leave a mark, so there would be no record of what they looked like other than like maybe like a dimple into the sand. They would decompose faster than they would make an imprint. Grant.
Also, I agree with Steven and wanted to add on. Also, not just like jellyfish, or things like species with not a lot of bones and bone structure. Also, like there are many like effects from like geological disasters and things like that that can destroy other skeletons and bone structures like that, and not very many actual bone structures will fossilize.
Okay, I'll let this catch up. I'm going to let you all continue on with your debate, but since this is sort of a new format for one of our debates, just a couple quick things. Let's keep in mind, try to remember this is a microphone, so if you could, try and hold it, you don't have to hold it directly next to your mouth, but just sort of facing, you'll see the microphone there. And also, if you would, just so for the clarity of the conversation, when you pass it off to someone, can you just say their name so we know where it's going to? So, Gemma, you had your hand up.
Okay. I'd like to argue that that's perfect. Keep it there. No. Okay. I'd like to argue that they're using sensationalism, but not a lot of it, because we are facing a mass extinction. Like, not a lot of the animals are gonna disappear like right now, tomorrow. Like 75% of them are going to be gone. I found evidence that a team in California who were studying whether or not there was a mass extinction, they found that in 334 years from now, 75% of all mammal species will be gone, which is basically like going to Africa and then looking out in the wilderness and nothing being there. Savannah.
I agree with what John said. But I agree with what John said. And I would like to add on, but what Steven said, that it wouldn't make an imprint, well, that can be true, that it wouldn't make a fossilized imprint. There's other ways that you can tell whether a species went extinct, like how it affected its ecosystems. Like if it went extinct, it would just stop doing that completely for records. If you, like, say, what it ate, a large amount just kept being grown, and it just stayed there after a while. And after it went extinct, you could tell just by what it ate whether it would still be extinct. Abby? Oh, sorry. I didn't see your hand.
What Gemma said, she said that the 75% would go extinct, but marine biologist Tundi Lagarde said that unique populations are at risk, not entire species. So, and she, before that sentence in her article, she said that humans are drastically changing ecosystems and stuff. So where humans are drastically changing is where the populations are going to be at risk, not the entire species. So, Keegan.
I actually kind of want to ask a question, like, as Gemma said, that she thought that, like, mammals were going to go extinct. Like, if the mammals were going to go extinct, what, like, kinds of mammals do you think would go extinct? Like, I don't know, yeah. A Tory.
I have a question to add on to that question. So if we are mammals, why aren't we going extinct if it is a mass extinction?
I want to kind of maybe give an answer to what Tori said. Maybe it's because we're the ones causing the mass extinction, kind of, because we're drastically changing the ecosystems. Savannah?
I would like to add on, or argue. Well, anyways, we are changing some things, but a lot of people are talking about a bunch of things, how we are only changing it and destroying it for our human needs, and not talking about how we're doing a lot of things to help them. Like, we're regrowing trees, and we have facilities so that we could give these animals that are endangered homes, so that when their habitat is regrown or rebuilt, that they can go back to that before they go extinct.
I wanted to follow up on Abby's answer a second ago to Tori's question. We were talking about the number of mammal species that are endangered, that are threatened with extinction. And I know we've read that that's in part due to habitat loss, whether it's because we're changing the climate from the habitat that they live in, or actually removing the territory from deforestation or building roads. Do you think, since Tori asked why humans aren't going extinct, do you think that humans can suffer habitat loss? Can humans have their habitat changed, and what would that be caused by?
To answer Tori's question, kind of to add a comment on Mr. Franklin's comment. We're kind of dominating. We basically dominated the world, as we're changing things. We're changing ecosystems. We're changing things, and we're getting new technologies and burning fossil fuels. And this is almost changing ecosystems to fit our needs. So we're changing things so we're not exactly adapting, but we're just kind of changing things so that we can have what we need, and we're kind of leaving everything else aside.
Great. I'll add on to what Kiki said. We as humans are usually thought of as the more advanced species throughout the world, and so we change our own climate to our benefits, and sometimes we change the climate faster than other species can adapt to them, which can cause great problems with the populations of those species. Thomas.
To answer Mr. Franklin's question about if, like, we can have all environments, like, changed and messed up, we, like, with earthquakes and tsunamis and things like that, with volcanic eruptions, where we have to leave rapidly or else we basically get eliminated from that area.
Just like with the tsunami in 2011, in Japan, it destroyed everything in its path. Okay. All right. All right. So a claim that I have is that it takes a while to get to make a mass extinction, and we've only been on this earth for how long? Like humans, 200,000 years, and it took like what, 2 million years for the dinosaurs to go extinct, something like that. But sorry, but how could we be in the middle of it? I mean, we just started, pretty much. Well, yeah.
To add on to what Clay said, we could be in a mass extinction because just because we haven't been around for very long, those animals have. So, like, the animals haven't been or have been around longer than we have that are going extinct.
To what Clay said, that we've only been new, well, that's on the cosmic calendar. In our years, we've been here for a long time, and we could have changed really anything. And natural disasters aren't the only thing that can change our habitat. I mean, we change our habitat. We knew Japan, that changed their habitat a lot. I mean, their habitat was basically blown up.
Since humans are the dominant species of Earth, we can pretty much live anywhere except for like the poles and the ocean, basically unlivable by humans. So basically, Earth is our habitat. So the only way our habitat could be destroyed is if we destroy Earth itself in some way. So, yeah. John?
Another way that we could destroy our environment would be pollution and environment change, like, what is it? Global warming.
All right. I do agree that we've probably changed the earth a little bit, but what Savannah said earlier, I think we're like fixing our mistakes. Like, we're planting more trees, and we caught on to mistakes that we made in the past.
This is sort of a question. Does there have to be animals for it to be a habitat? Or living things for it to be a habitat? Because we don't necessarily have to destroy our world. If we kill off everything, there's still going to be a world there, just not have anything on it.
Not a habitat at that point.
Okay, but that's just that you said that's the only way that we could destroy our habitat.
Technically, it's still a plane.
Roasted.
I would like to add on to what John said about pollution. Think of all the beaches and stuff that have like trash and stuff, and like all the sea turtles and other animals that go there to lay eggs and stuff. If it's polluted, then all the little baby sea turtles could get harmed or something. Just think of the baby sea turtles. Think of the turtles. Morgan.
I kind of wanted to go back to what Savannah kind of said at the beginning about how we really don't know how many species there are. And, like, a lot of scientists views, and they think about, like, Ariel, this guy said in his little thing that he wrote, he said, attention is given to the factors that might play against species survival, while little attention is given to the mechanisms that allow species to survive in a human-dominated world. So, like, we're really not looking at what, like, species and things are still thriving, but we're looking at all the negatives to why humans are causing the mass extinction.
Can I follow up on that, Morgan?
Yeah.
I think I have a loud enough teacher voice that might probably hear me. Yeah, I'd like to consider that for a second, because there's been some interesting discussion over on this other side of the room. Obviously, we're really Thank you. We're well aware of the many negative consequences that some human actions have had on ecosystems, on animals' habitats, environments. But we also know, we haven't studied it too in depth this year, but we know that all of those species and all those habitats are interconnected, right? In food webs, that there's interdependent relationships, that one species depends on the other. So,
teachers, pardon the interruption. Infinite Campus is down, so we may have to make a few interruptions. Sorry for that. Carissa Gilpin to the office. You're being signed out. Carissa Gilpin.
so I guess my question is, when one species goes extinct, we'll say, or at least they're endangered, can that possibly have, or what are the consequences on the ecosystem, the broader ecosystem, all the relationships it has with the other organisms that it may depend on, or that may depend on it? Is it necessarily negative? Does it have to be positive? And what are some of those more positive consequences that might result from these changing ecosystems and habitats? What do you all think? Is that an argument worth pursuing? There were a lot of hands up over this way.
Okay.
Keegan has one.
I don't have an answer to that question.
I don't either. So.
Okay,
I just have a different argument.
Think about it for a second. We can come back to it.
Okay, so do I say my argument that I had before?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to go back to what Noah and Daniel and then Chase said, that what's stopping the humans once the Earth we can't live on the Earth anymore? What's stopping the humans from taking over Mars and other planets? There's nothing really, besides of course not being habitable, but some planets are that we haven't really looked at. So what's stopping us from living there instead of Earth? Keegan.
Going back to Chase and his sea turtles, my dad's actually a diver, and he dives in the Ohio River, and he talks about how there's a lot of pollution on the bottom of the rivers and stuff, and he talks about how he actually sees a lot of animals that are dead because of pollution.
I would like to add on to that, actually. In my argument, I also said that we could be going into one soon, a mass extinction soon. And that's because we're using up, there's two things. We're using up a lot of resources that a lot of other species, including us, need to survive. A lot of animals need trees to survive, and that's kind of countering what I said before, how we are growing trees, but we're also destroying them, and a lot of the habitats that the animals need are of trees, and we're also using up a lot of water. Like a few days ago when we were talking about how California has a drought, every species needs water to survive, and if we use it all up, then there will be a mass extinction. And then we are also polluting it like crazy by using up all the fossil fuels to run our cars and factories, and by using them it's polluting the air, which is kind of why it's causing global warming and climate change. So animals aren't able to adapt fast enough, so they're going extinct. Daniel?
It's confused.
You're probably going to need to circle around.
Just walk around to Daniel. Hey. Not like any.
I know.
You didn't have to.
Hey. There we go.
He's like, where did it go? I like to counterclaim Savannah's thing about how we are losing trees. We only had 1,100 billion trees in 2006, and then only a decade later we now have 3 trillion trees. So they are increasing.
Why do you think that is? What might account for that?
Hippies. People just taking awareness of the problem that we have. And there's a lot more commercials about save the trees. No, that's for real. Like, Girl Scouts are starting to do it. Like, they're starting to plant trees every single year. Boy Scouts are doing it.
I don't know.
Do you think we are losing losing or gaining square mileage of forested area?
Yes, but we're making that back up by trying to plant trees in the concrete jungle. Like New York, we're starting to plant stuff there on the roofs. Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is how, if you're having so many more trees, if you're right, Daniel, that was good. That was good live on the spot fact check. We have more trees now, even though we know we read about losing forested areas. We read about deforestation and more development. How can those two things be happening at the same time? We have more trees, but less tree-covered area. Any ideas, anyone?
It's spreading around. It's not
Spreading out.
like in Antarctica, like you said, there's sunlight for 24 hours for a certain amount of months, but it's more spread, so it doesn't melt all that snow. And in the winter, it's more dense and more concentrated, so we're sort of spreading it out and not making it so concentrated on one area.
To add to you and the question of whether or not why trees are actually being urban areas are starting to plant more trees, like in areas where they're not building anything or doing anything. So they therefore have more trees in that area. Chase.
Going back to what Daniel said with the commercial of like ads and trees of how to like save them, I saw this ad on a TV show before it came back on, and it said about how a teacher and his class up in like New York or something, they were planting like vegetables and stuff in like old boots, or like they made this wall that had all the like plants hung on it and stuff. So I just thought that was a really cool connection for like saving the trees.
Saving the plants.
Speak.
Thank you. I have a question I would like to propose to the class. If you all do think that global warming is real, do you all believe that it is human-driven, or do you think that it is part of a natural cycle of the environment? John?
I'd say it's human driven because crap. Brain fart. Cars, the fuel they burn, they put off gases, and then the gases go into the atmosphere, and then they, I guess, create like a greenhouse effect or something. And then pretty soon it goes up or something to the north, and then it melts the ice.
I respectfully disagree, John. I think that it's not just humans that are doing it. I mean, I think we're probably the main cause of it, but I think a circle of life or whatever. I think everything why does it keep on turning? But I think, sorry, I can't stop laughing. But I think that I think it's a community effect. Because if you just blame one thing for overall environment troubles, well, I think what I'm trying to say is they're herbivores. They're herbivores. They're eating the plants too. Even though they rely on the plants, they're still eating them. So, but the forest, I don't know. I'm just gonna pass it off to somebody else.
Give that list. She's smart. Chase, no.
Say, think on that for a second. We'll come back to that. We've got to rephrase over here too. Beginning of the
Good idea. I just didn't have it all over.
Plus, you'll probably be distracted a little bit.
Going back to what John said earlier about global warming, we have ice caps and glaciers
that are melting, and they're causing the sea level to rise. So, like, if all the ice caps and stuff melt, then probably some of the states are going to be drenched in water.
You're right. I see a lot of hands up for true, which is great. If you all want to have a discussion about climate change, I think that's a very important one to have. But I also just want to remind us that this particular debate is focused on the mass extinction. Because we haven't really dived in depth yet to climate change. We're about to. We're going to be moving on to that fairly soon, and we will be having another debate more specifically focused on that. So if we're talking about mass extinction, we're talking about potentially the Anthropocene epoch. Well, I would say climate change probably would play a big role in that argument. But let's keep it focused on, we're talking specifically about populations of organisms here on the planet. If changing in numbers of those populations indicates a problem on Earth that needs to be addressed, if we can attribute it to human actions or not. We have a few hands for folks we haven't heard from yet. Let's get
Alyssa.
the priority.
Who's the kitty?
Almost.
Okay, I believe we are in the middle of a mass extinction because, as Mr. Pretzel said, because of global warming, because by deforesting animals' homes, like tearing down the forest, you're kicking animals out of their homes, so sometimes they can't adapt to new ones, or they just like lack food, so they die off quicker, and that makes the food chain get messed up, so then everything gets all out of whack, and then we end up in a mass extinction, like I believe we are.